The year was 1323. Long before maps were precise and roads were safe, a stone chapel stood at the edge of a forest village. It had 6 tall windows, all of them clear. Until the morning, they began to darken. It started with the eastern pane, the one facing the graveyard. Villagers thought it was smoke at first, a gray stain spreading across the glass from the inside. But when they wiped it, their clothes came away clean. The darkness was not on the surface, it was within. Over the next week, the gray deepened until no light passed through at all. At sunrise, the chapel floor remained cold and dim, as if the sun had forgotten that wall existed. Then came the reflections. At dusk, when the sky turned violet, shapes began appearing in the ashen glass, not inside the chapel, inside the window. Faint outlines of people standing shoulder to shoulder, still, silent, watching outward. There were no bodies inside the chapel. The door had been barred since the last burial during the plague months earlier. No one dared enter after that. Then a traveler arrived, a scholar who dismissed the fear as superstition. He demanded the chapel be opened. He would sleep inside and prove nothing was wrong. Reluctantly, the villagers agreed. They barred the door from the outside after he entered. No one would disturb him. That night, no one in the village slept. They all heard it. Not bells, not footsteps. Breathing. Low, collective breathing drifting from the direction of the chapel. At dawn, they unbarred the door. The scholar was gone. The chapel was empty, dust undisturbed. No footprints, no forced exit. Only one change. The eastern window was clear again, crystal clear. And if you looked closely, very closely, you could see faint streaks within the glass, like fingers pressed from the inside. Over the next days, another window darkened, then another. Each time, someone in the village disappeared, not violently, not dramatically, just absent by morning. And each time a person vanished, a window cleared, until only one pane remained untouched, the smallest window near the door. It stayed clear for weeks. The villagers stopped counting who was missing. They stopped saying names out loud. Then one evening, a boy stood alone in the square at dusk. He stared at that final clear pane, and he waved. The villagers screamed him to step away. Too late. The glass began to gray, slowly, from the edges inward, as though something behind it had leaned forward. The next morning, the boy was gone. The final window was clear, and all 6 panes now shone perfectly transparent in the morning sun. The chapel stood silent again, empty, for 3 days. On the 4th morning, the villagers gathered to tear it down, but when they reached the square, there was no chapel, no rubble, no foundation, just open ground where it had stood for over a century. And arranged in a neat row along the grass were 6 tall panes of glass, freestanding, clear, reflecting the villagers as they approached. Only the reflections were not copying them. They were standing still, shoulder to shoulder, and there were more reflections than people in the square. Much more. By winter, The village itself was empty. Travelers later wrote of a clearing in the forest where, at dusk, faint upright shapes shimmer in the mist like windows. And if you ever see your reflection pause half a second too long, don't step closer, because the glass in 1323 was never darkening. It was filling.